All right. Welcome back to Go Ask Sawyer for my 5, maybe 6 listeners by this point of the podcast. I'm Jamie, last name Sawyer. That's where that comes from. And today I have on my wonderful, beautiful friend, Jamie, also a Jamie. So you won't get it confused. And today Jamie is here to kind of talk about how to live life in that don't think, just do attitude. We
Yes.
have weirdly similar stories, so we'll get into that later. But Jamie, why don't you introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about who you are?
All right. Hi, I'm Jamie, and I am officially in my 40s as of December of last year. And
Welcome.
welcome to 40s. And with being in 40s, I have 2 kids who are, one's out of the house and grown, and one is on his way to being out of the house and grown. So I'm really trying to learn a little bit more about myself, who I am, what I want to do with the rest of my life, not as a mom, because I've been a mom since the month before I was 19, so fresh out of high school, actually
That's
in high
fresh.
school, just working on learning a little bit more about me and reminiscing of where I've been and what I've accomplished in life.
I like that. Jamie, do you have a favorite song?
Right now, I do have a new favorite song
What
by
is it?
Lainey Wilson,
Oh.
Heart Like a Truck.
Ooh, did you send me that? I feel like you sent me that.
I probably did.
It's a good driving song.
Yeah. It's
And
a
why do
song
you-
where you belt it out on your own when no one else is listening type of song. Yeah.
I was gonna say, why do you like it? But it's a good belting out. Does it have a good message?
I don't know what the intention of the message is, but the way I perceive it is she's telling a story of a woman who's been through some things and beaten, bruised, moved along, and is still keep going along. And the best way to do that is get on the road and drive to the next destination.
Well, Jamie, I kind of feel like that's your theme song. So if we want to get into the episode, I kind of feel like just thinking about that. So I met you in 2018. So I've known you about 4 or 5 years. I can't count. I don't know.
I don't do
But
math either.
I've known you for a little while. But you did tell me you had a baby when you were 18. So did you have been a mom your entire life, basically?
Yeah.
But the one thing I love about you that has always come through is you just don't think about how others are going to perceive, or at least you don't let it be shown, and you don't allow others to get in your way. You just get it done. Have you always had that mentality, and how maybe has that helped you? We'll just start with having a baby at 18. How did that
Sure.
help you become a mom like that?
So I was reflecting on that when we started talking about this being the topic. And the first time I can remember really having that profound feeling of don't think about it, just do, was the moment I found out I was pregnant. And I wasn't in a good place mentally, in a good place home environment wise, relationship wise. School, I was pretty much failing my senior year of high school, and something just hit me in that moment of you need to take action. You need to straighten some things out and prepare for your next step. And what that looked like was meeting with one teacher who was just amazing in school. His name was Mr. Krieger. He was our history teacher, and I was not a history student. And he just took me aside and was like, what can I help you do? You need to fix your life, basically. So I worked with him, study halls and lunches to get my grades up to passing.
And that's awesome to have a teacher like that. I don't think I've ever had a teacher like that. Even having the support from that teacher change your mindset when it was time to did you live at home after you had Dom?
No, that was probably my second don't think, just do.
Oh.
So it was so profound on me is that I wasn't closely connected to him. Any other time in class, I wasn't a great history student. He had no emotional tie. Some kids just have an emotional tie to certain teachers. We didn't have that. And I didn't necessarily have that support in my home life. So it was profound to me that this man that had no connection to me other than just being my teacher decided to say, hey, I see something in you and I want to put some effort into you to help you be better because I know you're better. And that stuck with me, and it drove me, because then I felt like now someone's paying attention and now I need to do something different.
Well, you're very blessed to have that. Okay, so you go and have a baby, and you said you didn't stay home. You left your house.
No, I left before I graduated. So I was still in school. And after I absorbed the fact that I was having a baby, and it was not an option in my mind. Like, it wasn't even a thought to not have my child. Like, this
Yeah.
was my choice. I made this decision. This is where life's taking me.
Mm-hmm.
And my next step was, I don't want to have a child where I was living. So not
Yeah.
that my whole life was dangerous or tragic or,
Mm-hmm.
anything where I feared having a baby in my home. It was more like, this is my responsibility and something I need to focus on. And I know I couldn't focus on my child being in my childhood home. I just 2 months pregnant when my dad and my sisters went on a little trip up north, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And I didn't go, and I packed all my things when they were gone, and I moved out into my boyfriend's home, and then they all found out when they got home.
So were you scared? I mean, I don't know. I know 18-year-olds, but you're pregnant and you chose to leave. Now you lived with your boyfriend's family. I'm not sure. Were you scared when you did this? And as you reflect on it, like even thinking about anyone listening right now who is 18, 19, or even 30 and maybe by themselves, like how did you muster up this courage to not even like, it didn't even seem like you really thought about it. Like all you thought was, I need a good home for me and my baby, and you just left. What, were you scared, or did you not even think about
I don't know if it's a positive or a negative or how this, up until then, my life's experience has been a very independent, caretaker type of role in my household. So the fear of being able to not take care of myself wasn't there, because I knew I could, I knew
Yeah.
I would, I knew I was. I was a little afraid because what I was leaving wasn't necessarily going into a better environment.
Mhm.
I just knew I had to make a change. And then once I got that change, I knew I'd be preparing for another. It's like
Yeah.
subconsciously, I knew there were steps to getting me to a better place.
Mhm.
It may have not been the best decision at that time or the best move, but I needed to do something different. And the thought of burdening my home, my
Yeah.
childhood home, with this new thing,
Yeah.
this new
Baby.
event, life,
Mhm.
all the things I was going to have to go through. I knew that I needed to be my only support, and I needed to not have to worry about shame or anything else. So I was just leaving the environment into the next.
So you just said, I knew I had to be my only support. And I
Mhm.
kind of feel like that is your mentality. Even the girl I know now, like, I kind of feel like that's your mentality, that I need to be my support. I got it. Don't worry about it. I'm going to take care of it. Would you agree that's kind of been your
Yes.
theme throughout your life? Okay. So, you had your baby and life
Mhm.
is great. You're living on your own. Like, did you have support from people, or was it, I mean, I'm sure you weren't just like in a box down by the river, which is also fine, but you were in a home, but did you have like, what kind of support did you have? Or were you really just focused on, this is my responsibility, I got it?
One thing, life was definitely not great. I did not move out and life was great. I moved out to live in my boyfriend's mom's home, and he was a drug addict, a manipulator. The
Mm,
home was not healthy. It wasn't great. However, I was my support. When my dad did find out that I moved out, when he came home and he found out why, we didn't really talk, but I knew a whole lot about it.
yeah.
But he did want me to come back home. He
Okay.
wanted me to not be where I was. My mom did not live at home with us. It was my dad and my two little sisters at the time. My mom was very against me having a baby, not the fact that I was having a baby at 18, 19 years old. It was who I was having a baby with.
Okay.
So she was very against the option of me having a child,
Mhm.
which put a big wedge between us for quite a while, because
Yeah, I
that,
could see that.
again, not having my child was not an option. It wasn't even a thought in my head. So
Was it
abortion
hard?
was.
And was it hard to have that wedge between you and your mom? Like, or again, do you think that's kind of what keeps solidifying this mentality of like,
Mhm.
don't worry, I got it?
Yeah, I mean, the wedge wasn't hard. There was a lot of separation, just because our family dynamic was, again, not necessarily stable. It wasn't a dangerous environment, but
Right.
I grew up in an alcoholic home, and my mom, no like ill feelings towards her, did leave, and she should
Mhm.
have
Mhm.
appropriately. But the way we grew up, my sisters and I have three sisters. We just were very independent, self-sufficient, took care of things because that's the roles we had to have.
Yeah.
So it didn't affect me until my adult years that there
Okay.
was wedges between my parents and I. At the time, it was just like, yeah, all right, so what? So
Mhm.
now I just need to prepare for my child, and that's the only thing I focus
And that makes sense. I do feel like a lot of things we're not paying attention to up until we're like 30, and then
on.
all of a sudden we start to see patterns of, you could say, extreme independence, which I feel like
Mhm.
you kind of are like, I got it, or people pleasing or codependency.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden it's like, wait, why is all this happening? And then you look back and you're like, oh, okay, now I get it. Okay, so you did not marry your baby's father.
Correct.
Okay.
Nope,
It was just
definitely didn't do
you.
that.
Ugh, definitely did not do that. Is he around now? Not really?
No, again, my subconscious knew what I was doing before my conscious self knew what I
Okay.
was doing. So I guess you could say the universe helped
Mhm,
me out in finding a way. I knew I had to find a way to get out. I knew I had to find a way to not be in that relationship
mhm,
anymore. We moved out of his mom's house, which gave me a little bit more control over what
mhm,
was happening in my life. And then one day he just decided to make a really poor decision. I had sheriff's departments with guns drawn showing up at my apartment door looking for him.
mm.
And without even thinking, I opened my door, pointed to my back bedroom, and off to jail he went.
Do
We
you
were done
think, I
at
mean,
that.
at that point, were you like, "I'm thinking of myself and my child"?
It was here's my opportunity
Yeah.
to remove him from our lives.
Okay, so you and your little bundle of joy, and you do
Mhm.
end up getting married again someday.
Mhm.
So
I
tell me
do.
about this second relationship.
That one, it was interesting. So I was a waitress. I worked full time as a waitress, took care of my baby,
Mhm,
and guy just kept coming into the restaurant, and I was like, "Who the hell do you think you get away?" But
mhm.
ended up liking him, and he didn't care that I had a child, and was very persistent in a nice way. He was very persistent, and then we ended up moving in together and getting married and having my second son.
Okay.
Mhm.
So now you have 2 boys, you're married, and this is kind of where I think things in that marriage, did you feel that hyper independence as well? Like, I got it? Or did you start to lean on, I don't wanna say lean on him for support, but you know when you
Mhm.
have a supportive partner and you're able to kinda let your walls down and
Yeah.
just trust in them? Or did you have that hyper independence still?
It did. I did let those walls down. So anytime I had to make the don't think, just do it decisions,
Mhm.
it was like if I could cartoon it, make it into a cartoon, it was like this invisible shield all of a sudden went up where
Mhm.
people's emotions didn't matter, people's opinions didn't matter, and I just needed to do what I needed to do. So kind of that like fight, flight, or
Yeah.
freeze
Oh, yeah.
reaction
Yeah.
took place and all the things happened.
Yeah. I do a lot of
Um,
flights. I've noticed in my life, I run real fast. Walls go up,
yeah.
I run real fast. So, I my background is very similar to yours. I didn't have a baby
Mhm.
at 18, but just growing up in the household I did, and I do wonder if the flight is just a way, like, I cannot mentally deal with this right now, and
Mhm.
safety-wise, I'm just gonna run. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
go, which is
Yeah, it's a
unfair to the person
protection
on the end.
response.
Yeah, and it's unfair
Mhm.
to the person on the other end, but I also think if we've never been taught those communications and also feeling safe with being able to share, "Here's how I'm feeling,
Mhm.
and here's why," I'm just gonna run because I don't even
Mhm.
feel safe. Either I don't feel safe with my feelings because I've always been devalued, like, "That's not real,
Mhm.
that's not true, that's not what happened," or just not being heard.
Yeah.
So, you were married, did you have another moment of, "I'm out, gone, I'm gonna do this now"? Let's
Yeah,
talk about
so
that.
the protective shield came down a bit more so because I felt like I had less to worry about. Like
Yeah.
I didn't have to worry about taking care of an alcoholic. I focused all my attention on my children. But after a while that initial I have nothing to worry about goes away because then other things come up and I was never taught how to deal with communicating
Yeah.
and identifying emotions or being okay with having emotions
Mhm.
and then how to properly explain them. It was
Yeah.
either don't talk about it or literally scream and yell is
Yeah.
and my response was always don't talk about it
Mhm.
because you're going to cause a problem. So a couple years, well actually 4 months before we got married, I've we both found out that had a daughter he didn't know about.
Oh.
Um, so the wall started building itself back up. We still got married, and I rationalized my red flags. It was, well, I have a child. and he accepts my child, why don't I accept his child? I need to
Mhm.
accept his child. Not
Mhm.
questioning the scenario, the situation, or how it happened. It was just a whole, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Then
But it
as
was it
we
was a red flag. You decided, like, "I'm just gonna figure it out. I'm not gonna hold this against him. We're just gonna figure it out."
Right, and I wanna be clear, I'm not that he had a child and that's a red flag. It was a red flag because we were dating off and on when the child was conceived, and I had not known that there
Oh.
were other relationships happening in between there. So that's
Mhm.
why it was a red flag.
That's that
Um,
communication piece. You guys may
yeah,
have forgotten to talk about that. We're not
yeah,
seeing other
right, yes, exactly. So, I mean, little things like that just kept happening. He was very about self-image, and I did not grow up that way. Like, it just wasn't in my thought process of what I needed to look like and how I needed to eat and how the public perceived me visually. It was more of a pride of how do people perceive me as an individual.
like, your
So that was,
character.
yeah, my character. So that was a little different for me and kind of hard to deal with. So I became less seen, less valued, in my opinion, and kind of like a more of a burden than a partner.
Do you think, in doing that, and maybe this will lead to kind of where how the marriage maybe
Mhm.
ended, you started to, like, dim down or even, like,
Mhm.
question who you were because all of a
Mhm.
sudden you were being told that what you valued wasn't important?
I stopped being as confident as I was prior to that. And he started seeing other people in a
Mm,
different light. And then I did end up finding where he was. I don't know if he was ever physically cheating on me, but emotionally, he was
yeah,
definitely cheating on me. I found conversations with other women. He was a personal trainer. And so that immediately my walls went right back up, and I went into planning mode of
yeah,
my subconscious. Let me look for ways out now. And
yeah.
I didn't realize it was happening.
That marriage ends,
Mhm.
what's your next step? What and this is kind of where I feel like our stories weirdly intertwine. What is your next step after this marriage end? Or what
So
do
I
you
was
do
a
after?
yeah, so I was a stay-at-home mom when this was all happening,
Mhm.
and I started looking for jobs. I found a job in a different town, which was odd for me because I don't venture out like that.
You like your
So I
place.
found I like my place. So I found a job in a different town at a clothing store, a retail store, and started meeting new customers.
Mhm,
And one day, this girl, woman, person, individual of the female gender walked in,
mhm.
and something just lit up in me. I was like, "Ooh, I got to know who this person is. I
"Ooh,
want
who's
to,
that?"
yeah, like who are you about,
Yeah.
and how do I get to know you?" Started a friendship with intentions while I was still
Mhm,
married,
mhm.
and one thing led to another. I got divorced, and I started dating, and then sooner moved in with my girlfriend.
So, did you know before this you were gay, or was it also a surprise to you?
At first it was a surprise to me. It was like oh, this is new, this is
Mhm.
interesting. Where did this come from?
Yeah.
And then after a while, when I became comfortable with it, I did start to kind of think back of like friendships I had or feelings I may have had that I just didn't
Mhm.
know what to do with.
Yeah.
I grew up in a very small town, definitely not cultured by any way, shape, or
Mhm.
form. And my family upbringing was very much like, if you don't fit in this little box, whether it's religion, race, social economic
Yeah.
status. Like, if you don't match where we're at, you're either hoity toity and too good for us and
Yeah.
we don't like you, or you are just nothing. I don't
Yeah.
know. That's just
Yeah.
kind of the mentality of where I grew up.
Yeah,
So,
and that's just yeah, that's kind of a small
mhm,
town mentality also,
yeah.
not to offend anyone in a small town, but the mentality the mentality of it, and this is where our connection, is in that, after I was married, or I
Mhm,
realized in my marriage that I was gay in the same kind of way. I met someone and I was like, "Why do I feel this way? I should not feel this way." Because I think even the way I was brought up, being gay wasn't even an option. That wasn't something that was talked about. You find a man, you get married to a man. And not that at the time I did not love my husband.
mhm.
But it definitely was it was a feeling of, and I don't want to sound so cliche, but like a feeling of coming home. Like it
Mm-hmm.
just made so much sense. So I feel like that's where like you and I are both married to a man. And then afterwards it was like,
Mm-hmm.
not after, maybe like at the end. And mine, that was my reason for my divorce. I just think it's always so interesting when you were married and people ask me this to a man and they're always like, how did you know? And it was like, I didn't know until I knew. And then once
Yep.
I knew, I tried to deny it. Like I tried to go to therapy, I tried to do all the things, but I just, once you know, you can't
Mm-hmm.
unknow what you felt. And I don't know if you put yourself in a box. I don't mean to put you in a gay box or anything. You can be Rick. Oh, that was a good joke. I just always do think that's interesting about us. And our boys are about the same age as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you move in with your girlfriend. How does your family take that? Or was it just never really talked about?
Again, here's the whole like don't think, just do type of
Yeah,
thing.
we're back to that.
Um,
Your theme.
when I feel strongly about something,
Mhm.
it yes, I do consider how my loved ones or people close to me or my community, so to speak, is going to receive that information. However, I don't know where this comes from, but it's just not an option to deter me from doing what I wanted to do. Like it
Yep.
didn't occur to me that before I have this relationship or I need to sit down, I just did what I wanted to do and then let them know afterwards. And that wasn't received very well. I think my dad and I didn't talk for probably 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
My mom was, to be honest, I don't even really remember what my mom's reaction was. I think she was just kind of like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
But my like soon to be ex-husband at the time when we were like working on getting divorced and
Yeah.
we were separated and moved out, he actually reached out to all of my family and tried to have me admitted, saying that I
Committed.
was going through a mental breakdown and I was ruining my life and I basically was having a mental breakdown, I guess. So
That's fun. That's gotta feel good. Gotta feel good. "Hey, I'm dealing with these feelings. Gay, I don't know, so let's commit me." Makes me
yeah.
feel real good.
And I actually didn't know that that was happening until my family was finally responding to him in a fact of like, yeah, I don't think she's having a mental breakdown. I just think this is where she's at. So they didn't tell me till after the fact. We never had like a sit down where they were actually going to have me sent away. I just find it very interesting that.
But I'm glad they supported you in that way of like,
Mhm.
"No, she doesn't need that." And
Yeah.
that's very much his ego, right? Like, his ego
Oh, yeah.
talking, how in the world could she choose this over me or her over
Mhm.
me, or why would she leave me? But I'm really thankful that your family didn't commit you and that they
Me
were
too.
just like, "This is where she's at right now."
Mhm.
So, okay, you're out in the world loving this woman. You guys broke up?
Yeah. She.
And how, and if I don't mean to interject, but was that breakup also a don't think, just do? Like, I'm just gonna be done, or was it more of
Mhm.
a regular break?
No, it was, well, I mean, there were again red flags that I didn't understand how to identify, communicate, work through. So
Mhm.
I knew in the back of my mind that something wasn't right. I wasn't comfortable. I started, separating myself a little bit and then found out that she was cheating on me.
Mhm.
And when she did, we actually talked about that, unlike my marriage. And I did have conversations about that, and she wanted to have an open relationship. She wanted to find a way to not lose me, but also do her thing, I guess.
Mhm.
And it's just a no.
It's
It's
a big
just a
no
straight
for
up,
me. It's a hard no.
it's a
I don't
hard
share.
no from my toes to my nose, like that that shit's not happening. So yeah, it was like, nope, we're done. You can move your stuff and go live with her, and I will live here in our house until I can find a different place for me and my kids. And that was it. She did try coming back a couple times, and as she would be on her way over, I'd be like, nope, and put my kids in the car and we would leave and go stay at my sister's and come back when I knew she was gone. It was just like
And I
that's
feel
not
like
happening.
that's really hard to do. I don't know many people that go through breakups that are, when the person tries to come back, is really like, nope, you're done. You're done. But you also have that mentality. We've talked about this. I'll give you 2 or 3 chances and then you're just done. You're out of my life. We're not talking. get out of here, which sometimes I wish I had more of that, your mentality, because I hang on way too long. You just are very much like, no, I got to move on. This is best for me and my family. And then you met your wife. Well, you didn't know she was going to be your wife, but then you met Brooke.
Yes. Yeah, I met Brooke actually while my ex and I were dating. We got invited to Brooke and her sister, they're twins. Obviously, you know that, but they're twins. They had a birthday party, and I just remember seeing her sitting at a table, and I was like, yep,
that's interesting.
that's happening. As my girlfriend was over somewhere else, like chatting with other people that I knew was probably not an appropriate conversation she was having. So I also had an inappropriate conversation, not in an inappropriate, like it was in a
but
dirty
just like more of a, maybe I shouldn't be talking to her because I am interested.
Yes, my intentions were not pure.
I understand that. I understand that all too well. You know, you and Brooke have gotten married, and I met you right before you guys had your wedding, and it was beautiful and wonderful. How has this mentality you have, this don't think, just do, how has this kind of helped you or hurt you in your marriage now? Or have you let your walls down more?
I have let my walls down more. I think it's been an interesting time in my life. Like Brooke has been around when so many different things, traumatic things have been going on. Like my oldest son's dad stopped coming to see him. So Dominic was 11 or 12 when Brooke and I started dating. And his dad stopped coming to see him and pick him up, which is a blessing. It's not a good thing that he was going to see him, but that was really hard to go through. Plus just teenagers. So she's been there through 2 teenage boys. I have no experience with boys. I have 3 sisters growing up. So that was a learning experience. My youngest son has some emotional trauma that he deals with. So we've kind of been through some really random, some very unique things that we've worked through. And I think healing from the traumatic past between childhoods and unfaithful relationships and manipulation, I've gone through a lot of different changes, and I'm trying to find my way of like, okay, who am I without these walls? Because I am pretty good at putting up emotional walls so that I'm not burdening anyone. And I'm a people pleaser, so I want to put her in front of me all the time. That's what I do. I don't know.
And the idea you just said of, I don't want to burden other people with X, Y, or Z, or with these things. I think that is also, you know, a trauma response that comes from living with an alcoholic or an over people pleaser parent in the house, where my feelings and my issues are too much for anyone else. So I'm just going to take them on. And that's a really hard lesson. I mean, you have to feel really safe with someone to be able to learn to put those feelings out there, put those feelings on the table. And I think for anyone listening that has come from and he just does not feel safe with people in that way, it is so terrifying putting yourself out there in that way. And I wish it was simpler, especially because it's like, this is my partner, this is my person. I should feel safe to lay these feelings out, whatever that is. But that is such a hard slope to have. And I don't think everyone really understands unless you're a person like that. Because there's other people that just spill all their feelings out all the time, and they just don't even think twice. And I'm like, how do you do that? Aren't you scared that you're going to be too much? Aren't you scared that your partner is going to take offense? Aren't you? There's so many things. The stories in my head, I could write a whole novel. I think for anyone listening who is always worried about what other people are, is this going to be too much for you? That's a really hard thing to go or to learn to do or to undo. Brooke have kind of worked through that or are continuing to work through that, because I feel like that's just like a whole healing journey.
It is. We're definitely learning to work through that. So with the whole like, don't think, just do, there's been many positive situations in which that benefited me, you know, like coming out, and because of me doing that, I am where I am today. But there's also been negative times when I didn't think through something. It just didn't feel right to me. My walls went up. So I just changed my environment, or I left, or I just made a dramatic decision. And I think that's something I am working on not doing. Even the small don't think, just do, not just like a big gesture of we got into a fight and I'm going to leave, but like
and I'm out.
communicating. that's something I am working on making sure
Yes.
that I don't do, because I love my wife and I
Yeah.
love our life and our family. I literally went from being on welfare and working 3 jobs to working one single job and having 2 homes and a fabulous life supporting
Mhm.
our children and, kind of really doing what we want to do. And I want to keep that. So I
Yeah.
have to slow down my walls and I have to slow down my just do actions
Hmm.
so that we can continue to better our lives.
And I met you a few years ago, and I feel like the girl I met in 2018 and the girl now is I've just seen tremendous growth over these last few years. And I know
Thank
you
you.
and I have had lots of conversations and like we do have a lot of similarities. How have you, well, let me start with this. What sparked in you a reason to all of a sudden be like, I have got to change some things? I know we had a conversation once and you had said something like, I remember the girl I used to be, and I'm just not
Mhm.
that anymore, or something of that along those lines. So do you
Mhm.
kind of remember either that conversation or what made you say like, I need to do some work on myself?
Do remember that conversation. And to be honest, what really sparked that was getting to know you. So, it's not that I didn't also want to be better. Again,
Mhm.
your subconscious mind knows more than your
Yeah.
conscious mind. So I could have met you and not acted on the things I acted on, but I
Mhm.
knew that something wasn't sitting easy in me. I felt
Mhm.
insecure. I felt unsure. I felt that I couldn't trust myself. Like weird things were coming up. And I think it's because I was becoming more vulnerable with myself, but I didn't understand what to do with that because I
Yeah.
wasn't in a place where I had to, again, fight, flight, or freeze. I was like, here I am comfortable, and there's not anything to be afraid of or prepare
Mhm.
for or plan to protect my kids anymore. Like, I didn't have those
The
walls to be
chaos.
like,
Yeah.
I didn't have the chaos.
Mhm.
Exactly that. So I didn't know what to do with those things, those feelings and uncertainties, and listening and being able to talk to you and being like, literally, here's this person that went through life almost in another dimension doing the
Yeah.
same exact things.
So crazy.
And you just were able to articulate things. And I'm like, I want to do that.
Mhm.
And that caused me to think through like, hey, remember when you worked 3 jobs and you were a single mom of 2 kids and
Mhm.
fed them and they were safe and they were in school and you did all the things?
Yeah.
I never second guessed myself. I never questioned if I could or couldn't do it or if I was doing a good job. I just did it.
Yep.
So why am I now, when I'm in the best place of my life, why am I doing that?
Mhm.
And that's really what kind of sent me on this. Hey, I need to learn about myself. I'm in
Mhm.
my 40s. I don't have an infant or a toddler to care for. I mean, yes, I still need to care for my kids,
Yes.
but
Of course.
it's
Someone's got to care for.
there's all of a sudden space for me, and I didn't know how to do that.
Mhm. Yeah, and I also think when there is a lot of space and
Mhm.
when you're married, I mean, I was able to kind of go through healing and updoing, and I mean my breakup I think kind of launched me into this
Mhm.
like I'm so tired of running. I don't want to run anymore. And that's where
Mhm.
like the real work began. But I think the hard part, and you're doing a great job at it, I know, but when you are in a marriage or a relationship and like are both people on the journey, or what if just one person is on the journey and the other person
Mhm.
isn't? So what are some tools you have, like let's say someone's listening right now and they're like, I'm
Mhm.
married and I feel I'm losing myself and I'm trying to kickstart my life again. What is a tool that you started doing or something you started saying or something simple that just kind of started to relaunch you into that confident, kick
Mhm.
ass, get out of my way, I got this girl? Not that you're not, you're very much still that, but I know inside you weren't feeling it.
Mhm.
So what is
I
one?
think my number one tool is having a person or a community outside of my marriage, my
Mm,
relation. So like having you
mhm,
or becoming closer with my sisters again and
mhm.
having conversations, communication about things I've been through or
Yeah.
things that I want to work on, because I know that me going through some of this change, and not change, but self-discovery
Yeah.
or understanding isn't necessarily what Brooke needs or wants to do at
Right.
stage in life. So being able to do that and getting it all out because
Mhm.
we talk messy when things first come out. And
Yeah.
then being able to go back and have those conversations with her, like, hey, is this things I also was going to therapy,
Mhm.
which I'm just going to start going back.
Which I'm going back.
I am going to start going back. I
Sometimes we
have
need
my
a pause. Therapy can be real intense. You need a
yeah,
pause.
I did. I needed a pause. We dug into some pretty deep things from childhood that I really just wanted to go to therapy to get all my frustration and thoughts off my chest. And I didn't know that we were gonna go deep real quick.
You're like,
And
wait a minute. I am not ready for this.
yes, I just
So it
wanted a
sounds
venting session.
yeah, I just need to vent to someone. So it sounds
Mhm.
like you're saying, and I think this happens in relationship a lot. We lose ourselves in our partner and we kind of
Mhm.
forget we have friends and family.
Mhm.
And not that you're going to them like complaining, but it's more just not your partner can't be everything to you. And I know I've
Mhm.
forgotten that a million times. My partner being everything to me instead of like you are a lot of things to me, but this friend is this to me and this friend is this to me. And I
Mhm.
think we forget about that in relationship and that's how we lose ourselves. So I'm so thankful that you said that because I
Mhm.
think a lot of anyone listening, make sure you have a community, make sure you have a few people you can go to and just either vent or laugh or listen to different kind of music. I also
Mhm.
think your community reminds you who you are because sometimes
100.
with your partner, you're just the wife or you're just the,
Mhm.
not just, but like you become the wife, the mother, you take on the roles or whatever roles you have in your household.
Mhm.
And your friends remind you, like, oh, yeah, I'm really awesome. I forgot about that. Because at home, you
Yeah.
just have to play the same role. So I think that's so important that you said
Mhm.
that and that anyone listening, like, make sure you have a community.
Yep, exactly. And I think not only a community, because like you were saying, different people are there for you for different reasons. Like
Hmm.
I have friends that if I want to go have a good time and forget about hard stuff, I'm
Hmm.
going to go out with those friends. I'm not
Hmm.
going to go to those friends for when I'm breaking down about a therapy session that brought up a whole lot of things and I need someone who's been there and done that, you know.
Yeah.
Brooke and I had very different upbringings. We had very
Hmm.
different households. Not
Hmm.
saying one was more traumatic than the other, but just very
Yeah.
different. So
But you also
having
bring different things to the table
yes,
because of that.
yes, but having a friend at least,
Hmm.
or because my siblings were there, you know, having someone who kind of understands the type of environment that caused you to be who you are, understand to be able to understand kind of scenarios is
Yeah.
very beneficial.
So if you could, and I appreciate you sharing your story. You shared a lot.
Mhm.
And I really appreciate that because not everyone would be willing to just kind of share all of their life things and like, here's everything I did and here's all the different relationships and things I've been in. But I think we
Mhm.
forget that everyone's been on a different journey and we all have different things to bring to the table. So I'm
Mhm.
very thankful that you allowed your story to be shared. So if you could think back 2 years ago, so February 2021,
Mhm.
what would you tell yourself? What would you avoid? Or what would you have done sooner?
I would like to even go back to my 20-year-old self.
You can.
I
You can
would
only go back 2 years.
okay, 2 years. I can tell my 2-year-old yeah, you
Yeah.
know what I'm
Mhm.
saying. 2
I
years
know what you're
ago,
saying. Yeah, I got
I
you.
would tell myself that my don't just do. So when you can someday see the video, I'm air quoting that, but don't just do in situations where you need to be in a fight, flight, or freeze. I wish I would have started sooner just doing the things that make me happy instead of overthinking them. So putting that to the just do as a positive, you know, your friend calls, you're excited to go have dinner, just go do it. Don't think about it. Don't rationalize why you shouldn't. Don't think of how it's going to affect other people, like the whole spiral of mom guilt and all that. Don't do that. Just go do it because it allows more positivity into your life.
I love that. That if this is making me this excited, I just need to go do it. Okay. So
Mhm.
anyone listening, if your friend calls for dinner and it makes you excited, just go do it.
Yes.
So do you have any advice you would give to our listeners? Again, you very much as all the stories are happening in your head, you do have this is
Mhm.
who I am. I don't care what you have to say. I'm going to do it anyway. That you show the world. I know there's a
Mhm.
lot more going on inside. But do you have any advice for any women listening that might be in a situation that they're like, I saw the red flags. I don't want to deal with this. Or I got to have this conversation. I just don't want to do it. Or I'm
Mhm.
losing myself right now. I'm not the girl I used to be. Maybe like a sentence or a word or a phrase or something you could give people listening? Anything.
I would definitely advise that anyone going through any type of struggles or journey or finding themselves is to sit with your thoughts for a moment and think about what makes you feel the strongest, what makes you feel the happiest and the most powerful. And whether you have to write that down every day or tell that to your best friend or say it out loud to yourself in the mirror, whatever you have to do to bring that front of mind when those fears come up, when that anxiety comes up, or when that self-doubt comes up, repeat those things to yourself, because people can tell you till they're blue in their face all the good things about you or why you should be pushing yourself forward. But unless you identify them yourselves, that's never going to push you through.
That is 100%. Until you are ready or until you have it, it's just not going to happen. I like that, sitting with your thoughts, because again, you give your body a second to tell you what it needs to tell you. That energy that's like, yep, I need to go do this, or that weird gut feeling that's like, I don't know if I want to do this. I just do not want to be there. Or I do not want to have this conversation. Dig into that, like, why? Like, why don't I want to have it? What am I scared of? Or, what is it telling me?
Exactly. Because all the times that I've ever been in the just do situation, when it's been something that didn't feel good, I mean, I never didn't really sit with my feelings in that moment, but I knew I needed something better because something wasn't right. I never digested it or analyzed it. It just was my kids need better. I need to do better. This doesn't feel right. And that led me to my actions. I wish I would have been a little more educated in my actions and my thoughts and feelings, because I could have made better decisions, but we all live and learn,
Right? I always say live and learn, and then you get love, which has nothing to do with this. But I do think there's definitely something about just like, this is my life. And if you would have done things differently, if we think about that ripple in the water, if you would have done something differently back then, maybe you wouldn't be where you are now. So like, you had to go through those lessons, and you are beautiful and wonderful. And again, I do appreciate you sharing your story. This is not easy to do. And I know you're not always excited about camera with all the things, but you did so good. So I just want to say I love you, and just keep pushing, like keep doing every single thing you're doing. And when you have that, like, yes, I need to do this, keep going forward.
Thank you. Thank you. I love you too. And even though it's really weird to get all your life out there for whoever's going to listen, I appreciate it, because not only am I helping, hopefully, at least one other person, it's helping me to say the things out loud. So thank you for the opportunity.
Just love that. It's helping me to say the things out loud. Saying things out loud, there's so much power, and it takes away power of shame and guilt and all the things. Once it's out there, it's like, yep, it's out. All right, dear, I will talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Goodbye.